Hi guys, Thomas Phillips here, co-founder at DTC SEO Agency. There's been a very, very big update to Shopify and AI search. What I mean by AI search is the likes of ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Perplexity as well. Basically now what they've finally done is they've created a feed that goes directly from your Shopify store directly into ChatGPT. Now, we don't necessarily get to see on the back end all of the specific details and everything that are being sent over, but we can absolutely optimize this further. So I'm going to deep dive in on this video. We've worked out exactly how to do it so far, the information that needs to be pulled through, and I'm going to be running through an SOP we put together over the last good handful of hours exploring this and putting everything together on here. So let's head into the SOP. Okay, so this does get pretty damn detailed. I'm not going to run through every single specific side of things now. One really big part though to keep in mind is when we get to the point of exporting product data and re-importing product data, it's super important to, when we export it, we remove out all of the other columns that we don't want to accidentally override. The worst thing in the world could be that we export 3,000 products from a client's website, as an example, accidentally make one tweak across all the products, and we're totally screwed. So the way that we'll handle this is to literally have the handle of the product, the meta field columns only, and then delete everything else, okay, which we'll come to. Also, what we want to be doing is back up every export that we have. We basically want to make sure that if we do make a mistake, we have all of that data we can go back on. That is the super important part. Okay, cool. First thing that we want to do is we want to double check so far to see, does the product from the brand even come up? Is anything being pulled through? So there's 3 different prompts that we can use with this. My recommendation is literally just to open up a brand new incognito window. Just go to the free ChatGPT, don't sign up, and then basically just search each of these things. So just make sure it is specific for that particular brand and the unique selling point around that brand. So let's say, what's something we've got on the table here? Okay, a cigar box, right? Let's say, for example, recommend a cigar box that can hold 20 cigars. I don't know, right? We want it to be specific to the client's products, because the goal of it is to see, does the client's product come up as an actual product? We're not interested in just having it listed. We want it to actually come up as a product and pull that data through. Okay, we want to be taking 3 different screenshots of this, because this is then the data we'll go back over to then see, has this been picked up? Okay, cool. So that's one of the first things that we want to do. Okay, next thing that we want to do from here is to basically go, if you're watching this as your own brand, or if you're watching this as one of our team, we want to basically go into individual products and look at what data do we basically have for each product. Now, I'll give you a very clear example of this. This is just one of our test stores on here. I'm going to go into products. I'm not going to use this one because I've actually added the info in there. Cool. Okay. So I'm just clicking on a random product on here. I want to look at the variants. Okay. So we can basically see, okay, great. There's a bunch of variants pulled in. That's really good. And then meta fields. Okay. There's only 2 meta fields, and these are ones that I've added in. So we want to come back to that in a minute. We basically want to use meta fields for information like this. What is the color? What is the size? What is the material? Where was it manufactured? Who might this be for? These different things that we want to include inside of metafields. I'll show you an example of a store, one of our clients that has done this really well. So this is a radiator brand on here, and we can basically see, you know, the projection, the depth, the height, the weight, the color, the element output, you know, the heat source. So all of these things are very important, and things that we need to know and understand before doing this whole thing, right? Because if we go into, and let's say we look at one of our own brands like this as an example, and we're like, oh wow, there's no metafields, there's no information. It is extremely difficult for us to build a query, really, that ChatGPT could pull from directly. So this is one of the first key things. If there are not metafields and each product doesn't have specific information, that is an entire task in amongst itself, which could take a few hours if there are a few products. It could take 500 hours, depending on how many products there are, right? It just becomes kind of crazy at that point. The best case scenario is that a brand has basically built out their metafields as they go, and all of the products have that data in there. So we're going to go along with the assumption that the brand already has metafields built out. One of the next things that we want to do is create empty metafields. So let me head over to, if you go to online store, and we want to go to, where's it gone? No, we want to go to apps. We want to go to app settings. There we go. This is what I wanted. So go to settings, sales channels, and then you'll see this section pop up inside of here, introducing Agentic Storefronts, right? So let's click into here, preview products. It's going to bring up this pop-up. And this is basically our source of truth for information. So by default, what is basically happening is Shopify is sending the product title, the product description, and the product category. That is being shared via the Shopify catalog. That information is basically just being bundled up and sent to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can basically go through and look at it and go, is this a product that I want to show? Yes or no? Now, immediately what we can see on here is it's literally just pulling through the product title of the actual product. Now, this is all well and good if the product title is actually optimized and has specifics in there. So let's say, for example, I was looking for a radiator and it just said, you know, like the fancy brand name. It might be like the Super Warmer radiator, right? That doesn't give me anything specific, because how we search inside of ChatGPT might be, I am building a new house and the room is really dark and I want a black modern radiator, you know, that's 3.5 foot wide, and I want it to be on 110 volts and be super energy efficient, right? If the title of that product and some of the description was just like, this is the super good radiator, how does ChatGPT know to pick that super specific product for that very, very specific search query, or the entire phrase overall, right? So we need those nuances that someone is mentioning and saying to be inside of product title, and ideally mainly the product description. Okay, so this is really where this pulls in from, because the default of this with a lot of brands is literally the product title could just be like the model of it, right? Which doesn't necessarily make any sense. Eco tote bag in this sense. Okay, great. It's eco-friendly and it's a tote bag. Great. This is not the best example. The product description on this is way more detailed than what we see with most clients. Usually it's just like, say goodbye to plastics, and this is the great organic bag, and it's like this long. So it needs to be enriched. We need to enrich a lot of this content together. And this is where it comes back to metafields. If the client and the brand has metafields that are built out and they're very, very specific with certain things, we can basically go back and forth with the client to really understand what are the main key points that people are going to be looking for specifically, that we can then enrich this Shopify catalog with. Okay. As I was saying, like, let's say, for example, let's take a radiator as an example. It's going to be the name of the radiator. Potentially it's going to be the color and the size, right? And maybe if it's electric or gas, I don't know, right? Those might be some really, really core things which are very, very short that we could include in the product title. Now, if the brand has those set out as meta descriptions, as meta fields, sorry, that is exactly what we can pull in, and that's what we want to do. Same thing with the product description as well. We basically need to work out, okay, is the product description good enough right now? If it's not, what other meta fields or attributes could we pull in? And I'll show you this quick on here as well, because you can basically use this and test to see if the brand has the correct info. Now, this is different for every single brand that I've looked at so far inside of Shopify. So if we click into here, we can see that I basically have no information in here because this is just a test store, but you'll see some brands have a lot more info. But you can basically click into here, you can see the product attributes, if there's certain pieces on here, and then the product meta fields as well as. Now, the issue is, if I click into this and I'm like, great, okay, I want, let's just say printful synced. I want to add that on the end of this. Oh no, I can't do that. Shopify, for whatever reason, only allows you to do one specific attribute or meta field on here. So this becomes pretty damn useless because unless we go in and manually customize the product description for every single product and the product title, this is just not going to work. And then the issue on top of that is if we went in and edited the product title, that is also going to show on the front end of the website. Okay, big no-no. So what do we do here? We have to create our own meta fields, and then we have to build it together so it pulls through those correct attributes and pulls into here. Okay, so this is then what we need to do on here. We need to create empty meta fields. I'm going to set up one on here real quick just so that you can see it. So the way to do this is to go to settings, meta fields and objects on here. I'm just going to go back to this so that we can see it. Now we want to build this inside of products specifically because that's what we're editing. We'll go add definition. Okay, and then we can just literally name this AI search product template title. Obviously we've already got one. We want to select this as single line text. We want to add a description in because this is really going to help for the future when we come back and look at it. We also want to toggle this on so that we can fill into the product list and the admin API. This is not necessarily used right now, but in the future, this might be a really, really handy thing that we can pull from directly. Cool. Follow all the rest of these on here. So we want to set the product title to a maximum of 200 characters. For the description, it's going to be 2000. Okay, then we basically hit save on here. Okay, and I'm just going to discard this. Then this is then what we end up with. We have an AI search product title and an AI search product description. Now, if I go directly into a product, I scroll all the way down, we will then see meta fields, and then we can see the two new ones that I've added in. Now from here, we absolutely could just manually go through and type out the product title and type out the product description that we want to do. And that's fine if you have 5 products, as an example, okay? Nice and easy. However, when you have 1,000 products or 5,000 SKUs inside of the store, this is where it starts to get really, really messy, okay? So the next thing that we want to do on here, okay, is basically test to see if this is filled out correctly. So what we've done on this particular product is we just filled out eco tote bag and then music critic on the end. We want to head back over to the Shopify catalog mapping. I'm just going to click into here. I'm going to select AI search product title. And then we can see over here, the eco tote bag. We have the AI test title. Okay, I haven't saved this one. It's basically another test that we were running where I basically just typed it out manually. Cool. So I've typed it out manually. Okay, for QA only. Great. And now we can see on the preview side of things that that is pulling through correctly. Okay, because we have set this as a separate meta field to the actual title, right? We can have the actual title that shows on the site, and then we can have the AI search title, which is hidden in the background, but this is what ChatGPT looks at. That is the critical part here. Okay, so once we've verified that that's actually pulling through, the next thing is to bulk export. So for that, we'll go all the way over to products. We'll select all of the products, and then normally you can select all on the entire store. For this example, let's just do these two. Okay, so I'm going to select these two. I'm going to hit export. Current page, I'm just going to select these two products. You can just do all products and it will do everything. Okay, so when I select this one, I'm going to hit export. Then we're going to open this up inside of Excel and then roll from there. Okay, great. So this is basically how it opens up inside of Excel. You can see that there is a ton of different data on here, and there's a lot of information that we don't want to accidentally change, re-upload to the site, and then have Shopify just override everything. Okay, so this is really where we want to be very, very careful with the information that we're removing out, because we want to make sure that we don't override it. Okay, so we can basically follow this on here. We want to find a few different columns. We want to find the handle, the title, and then we want to remove anything else that we don't want to use inside of our meta field. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll head over to the AI search product title and product description. Okay, so for this particular one, we'll basically build out we'll save this as a backup first before we change anything. But basically what we want to do is build this out as a specific formula. Okay, so basically, why is this not working? Pull this through. Okay, I had a space at the start. There we go. Cool. Okay, so if I pull this through, what it's basically looking at is it's pulling in a couple of different columns on here, fields. So for this specific one, what's it doing? It's pulling in the title of the product, and then I'm literally just getting it to add vendor. If we wanted to also have this, we could do, let's do that, J1 on there. Oh, yeah, great. All right, we'll work out there. Okay. So this middle section basically puts a dash in between, and then it adds an extra one on the end. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense from that point of view. Cool. Anyway, what I'm basically doing on here is I'm pulling in the title, the vendor name, and then the size of that particular shirt. Okay, so if I drag this down, he says, okay, because yeah, this is a single thing. All right, so the size is potentially something we don't want to be adding in for this specific product, because obviously we have so many different variations of this. And actually, all of this information should be filled out by default. It shouldn't just be on that. Obviously, this is a test store, so do with this as you please, right? Cool. Anyway, I'm going to drag all this down. I just want to see, does it bring in that? Okay, so it's pulling in default title. Okay, because the values aren't set up correctly. So this is going to be a really, really, really big point, is there might be products that have all the correct information added. There might be a ton of products that don't have the correct information added. And really, that's why that initial start part in terms of looking at the meta fields is so incredibly important. And I think that's really where a lot of the time sits. For this example, though, we're just going to leave it as this, because obviously we want to test and see if it works. So the main core thing that we want to do from here is remove out any other columns that don't include the AI search fields and any columns that we're pulling in directly into here, because obviously if we remove them, it's then not going to show. Okay, so you want to be removing out everything. I'm not going to do it on this one. Remove out everything, resave the CSV. Obviously make sure you save it as not as the backup file. We want that independently. We want to then duplicate that, open that, and then edit it inside of here. Cool. Okay, great. So from there, we'd go back, we'd hit import. We basically upload the file, go through the steps. And because we're just using the title, the handle, and then the other fields which we're not going to be changing, which we're going to be pulling through, and then the new SEO, the new AI search title and description, that is going to override what is already inside of the products. So if I went to this particular product, is it going to let me go straight to it? No. If I went to this specific product, what it will basically do is override this. So if there was nothing there, or if there was something there, it's going to replace it with whatever formula we had. Now, one other key thing is to save that Excel file as a CSV. If you export it as a CSV, it's going to make sure that it doesn't have the formula written out in there. It's going to change it so that it is the actual text. Okay, really, really, really important part. Then we'll drag the formula down, obviously double check, cross-reference everything. We'll do that from there. Spot check 5 different rows, delete the separate columns. We've already done this. Save and import the file. This is a super important part. When you go to import the file, tick the box that says replace any current products that have the same handle. Okay, we want to override what is already in there, which is why we're removing all of those other columns as a failsafe. Great. Then basically go into the specific products like we've shown on here. Okay, and then verify that everything is now working from there. Brilliant. And then the final part we want to do is head back over to settings, sales channels, and then click on Shopify catalog mapping. We then want to be selecting inside of here the product title. Okay, and let's just update this because I'm not sure if I've updated this since. Click into preview products. Click into here. We want to set this as the product title. Great. And now we can see, awesome, it's now updated to the correct meta field that we have set for this particular product. It's using the AI search product title, which is the customized one that we've gone through and built the whole thing of. Then it's pulling it through directly into here. And once we hit save, this is then going to tell ChatGPT, Copilot, all the other ones that this is the product title and this is the product description for this specific product. So we've gone from a very much under optimized product and catalog overall into a very much more optimized. Okay, I've looked at this on a couple of different client sites and it is literally just bag or whatever, black bag, and then it's just a random little bit of information, so we can really enrich this with as much info as possible on here. Cool, great. And then what do we want to then do from there? We want to set up a calendar reminder. We want to go in and double check this. We want to run the same queries that we did at the start, and we basically want to see, great, have the new products appeared inside of ChatGPT? This is the stage where we're at now, working out basically how long does it take. We can also run some branded queries to forcefully pull up those particular products as well as, and then we can basically go from there. So just to summarize everything that we've been through here, this is extremely, extremely important that we get this set up, that we get this optimized for all the different brands, because without this, there is a potential that ChatGPT and all the other AI search platforms don't pull through the products correctly. Okay, and if they don't pull in the products correctly, it's going to pull from another brand that has already got this set up. So the potential for getting a ton more traffic is absolutely huge. We cannot miss out on this. The first movers in this space are absolutely going to capitalize. Cool. So that is basically the whole overview of things. And it really comes back down to having the source of truth already set up inside of those meta fields. If those meta fields are not developed and not built out, they absolutely need to be filled out. This is what we're working out internally at DTC SEO Agency. Okay, how do we work with clients to do that? Do they have the capacity in-house to build this out themselves in terms of adding all that relevant information into the meta fields, especially if these are very, very specific products that have slight nuances to things. If that information isn't already on the website, it's very difficult for someone outside to really know that product in depth to be able to add that information in, obviously. Cool. So Whether you're an existing client, whether you're a team member watching this, or maybe you've stumbled across this on YouTube, hopefully this has been helpful. If you stumble across this on YouTube and you want us to sort all of this for you, because it takes an absolute boatload of time, get in contact with us, and we'll hop on a call and then run through that in more detail and go from there. Cool. Excellent. Thanks so much for your time.